everybody. Welcome to Coffee Chat. I'm Andy Bozarth, Director of Outreach and Advocacy for AARP Kansas, and I'm joined today by Matt Miller, a great meteorologist from KSNT. We're so happy to have you with us, Matt.
Good to be here.
As always, thank you for taking time out of your really busy schedule to join us. You have lots of information, and that's a very good thing because Kansas this time of year can be very dangerous weather-wise.
Yeah, it can. And there's a lot of different things that we have to kind of watch for this time of year. And then we really are entering into kind of what we consider our big storm season. It can happen if the ingredients come together really at any time. But we get into about mid-April through mid-June, and that's probably the most active 2-month window of the more dangerous storms. And then storms continue through the summer, and we see that pick back up again in the fall. But certainly mid-April through mid-June is kind of the peak across most of the state.
When we talk about inclement weather in Kansas, what kind of activities are we talking about?
Well, I guess really you'd have to first define what the inclement part is. I mean, we have different seasons will come with different threats. Obviously, we just got out of the most expensive storm we've ever had in the entire history of the state was an ice storm. More than any of our tornadoes have ever been. The one back in 2007 that hit pretty much the entire eastern half of the state. That one, for money wise, that's the most expensive. If we keep on the money train of things, the yearly regular basis, hail is the most expensive on an every year in and out kind of basis. That's usually the most expensive. So that part of inclement weather, of what's going to cause the most damage, it's going to be hail. Obviously, the most intensity when we get with that is pretty obviously going to be your tornado. But, we had back in December a pretty significant widespread wind event that was, I think, caught a lot of people by surprise just how strong straight line winds can actually be and what that can do. Interestingly, you take all that into account, the deadliest storms on average across the country, we don't have a statistic we keep for Kansas in particular because the numbers fluctuate at a state level a lot more based on, whether it was busy or not one year or not. But it kind of evens out a little bit more nationally. And most of the time, tornadoes are number 3 on the list for as far as the top killers. Lightning and flooding are actually at the top, with flooding being the absolute highest. And of course, if you were to add in heat, then that would actually even be higher. But heat's kind of an interesting one. We get into the summer months, and I always find it to be kind of an interesting thing. It does not get hot enough anywhere in the country to kill you. We could survive all the temperature ranges that we experience anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world, really. The difference is what you do in the heat. If you try to overwork yourself, if you were to sit in the shade, drink plenty of fluids, all that, you'd be just fine on the hottest day we've ever had in state history, and everyone could live through it. But the problem is kids being unfortunately left in a vehicle, elderly people in a home, and they don't want to pay for the air conditioning or can't pay for the air conditioning. They would almost be safer outside rather than inside. Things like that are, and it's a lot of times it's sad stories about what, shoulda, coulda, woulda kind of situation. But heat, we end up putting on a different list of what we call indirect killers. So that one's on a different one. So when we look at it, we really start focusing in then on flooding, lightning, and tornadoes. Those are the kind of the big 3.
Wow, that's a lot. I know those straight line winds in December, both my next door neighbors got new roofs out of that. So.
Yeah, a lot of people did. I heard many people had trees fall down into their homes. It was certainly a significant one, which is unusual too, because usually it takes leaves on the trees to break branches off of any significance. But to get that done without leaves on it just gives you a good indication of what 80 to 110 mile per hour winds will do.
Oh yeah, it was a dangerous storm. And as we talk about dangerous storms, what kind of things can people do to protect themselves when they are out in a storm?
Well, one of the biggest things is try to avoid being out in the storm. I mean, that's obviously the biggest thing. We have homes for a shelter for a purpose. Over the years, we've gotten accustomed to the way we live in the sense of, we like our homes because of how they look, how they make us feel. But ultimately, you go back historically, we built homes for shelter, and that has always been the purposes behind that. And so, we need to continue to think of them that way and have them designed or set up in such a way that we have a good place to go. And so utilizing that, which means, if you're, in a situation where you've got a basement or a cellar or something underground, then great, because historically, other than one incident I've been able to find in the last 50 to 70 years, there's only been one time ever somebody's died underground, while fully underground, taking shelter from a tornado. So, and that's got a lot to that story too, that you could almost put it on a separate list of a fluke occurrence. It was such a strange series of events. So for the most part, everybody outlives tornadoes when you're underground. And so obviously if you've got that set up, great. If not, then you go into like plan B mode, where's the next best place? Or could I get to an underground shelter if I was given enough time? It really comes down to pre-planning, preparation, not just that I'm going to pay attention and then I'm going to have a way to get the information, because that's important. And whether you're in the Topeka area or another part of the state, you just find your local media as your source. A little bit more iffy on using social media. I know a lot of people kind of transitioning to that way, but a lot of people, if you're on Facebook, it's not chronological, so you may not get the things popping up to the top of your list in a timely fashion. You can get them out of order. So there's a lot of issues there. You can get some bad information in the mix as well. So if you stick with a trusted source of information, the National Weather Service, weather radio, television meteorologist, radio meteorologist, there's a lot of different ways you can get it. Find a trusted source in your area that you trust, that you really want to say, I believe what they're going to tell me is going to be the best they can possibly come up with for me. Find that information, and then before that ever happens, have a plan of what would you do if it really truly is the big one coming at you. How are you going to survive it? If you got that plan in place, that's a good thing. A few years back, I was speaking to a group here in Topeka that had, it was a lot of retirees who had moved into a retirement community. And so they were used to having their home, but this was the first year they'd lived into their new place, and it was set up differently. With their age, they didn't want to have a basement. So they had designated places on their campus of buildings where that's where they would go. And then a couple of them were like, well, what if we didn't even have enough time? And so we looked at, okay, so here's the next best place. And you kind of just come up with a fully thought out, well-reasoned plan of, if it's a small tornado happening really quickly, is the best thing really to try to get a block away to an underground shelter? And maybe in that situation, if there's not enough time, no. Maybe that's get in an interior bathroom with no windows or a closet kind of a situation. But if it's a big one coming and you've got 15 minutes notice, yeah, get underground. So it's always that having that plan in place and the whole method kind of thought out. You're not going to make good decisions when you're in panic mode, and you got to remember that.
Yeah, that's really good advice and something everyone should heed. That plan is so important. And if people want more information about what to do, can they go to your website?
There is some information there. I mean, obviously our website's more geared toward the forecasting part of things to get information of when it's happening. What we really encourage people to do is maybe set up a time of just talking to their local county emergency managers. They're really good about wanting to make sure everyone has a plan in their county, because basically they've got one of two things. Either they help you get a plan or they have to come rescue you. And so they're obviously going to want to have a plan. And so a lot of times they know, like, maybe you live really close to a shelter that opens up every time. Maybe it's a church that has a basement that has given access to the emergency managers, and they can open it in a situation and will. Recently, we had a tornado warning just a couple, early end of March in Jefferson County, and they were sending us messages to the emergency managers where they were opening up some of the shelters there, one of the schools, one of the churches. They do have some plans in place. Not every single county works the same way. A more populated county like Johnson or Shawnee or Sedgwick, we're going to get probably not that kind of a setup to where, hey, everybody go to this location. That's clearly not possible. But if you're in a more rural area, you may have that as an opportunity. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to check with that. And if you live in maybe in a community, a residential community, that would be a good plan. What's the best place that we have here? Are there any underground shelters? And just use these general rules. Avoid big rooms, avoid windows, avoid the outside walls. I mean, if you can get away from those, you've already put yourself into a pretty good spot. And then if at all possible, be underground. And not all parts of the state are loaded with basements, as we're comfortable in the Topeka area being pretty full with basements everywhere. And a lot of that goes back historically to the big 66 tornado. After that, pretty much everything was built with a basement. That's not the case across the entirety of the state. And so depending on where you are, you may have some different options available to you.
That's great. I had no idea that the county emergency management systems set up locations that people could go in their community.
Some do. And again, it is, it's, I would say hit or miss, but it is different for every county. They are not governed in like a statewide framework in the sense of every one of them runs differently. And so the more you know how your county operates, the more options you'll give yourself too, especially even if you're out and about and you may find yourself needing a spot, but they're good about that.
And what about if you're in your car, what should you do and a tornado's coming?
Well, the biggest thing we've been really trying to like drill home to people is we've got to rethink one particular thing, and it's good and bad. We've made the decision over the years to kind of preach to everybody, don't outrun a tornado. You're never going to outrun it. Well, that is a true statement if it's a fast moving tornado moving at you, that you're not going to outrun it. But the better way to think about it is, okay, first evaluate, do I have enough time to get out of the way? Because it's not outrunning it. I don't want to go the same path it's going. But if I could, in 1 minute's time, get out of the way of the tornado using my escape vehicle to get out of the way of it, and then I never get hit by it, that's a smart move. And the unfortunate part is what we've done, and it was inadvertently, we've made people run to a ditch, and because they have to get out of their car. But a lot of times what will end up happening is there'll be a tornado across a field by maybe a mile or two, moving at 35 miles per hour. It's 4 minutes away from them. And so they'll lay in a ditch for 4 minutes waiting for a tornado to hit them. And it's like, was that really the best use of that 4 minutes? Or could you be 4 minutes of a drive away out of the path of it? Now, of course, that takes the skill of being able to tell which direction it's moving. Always, if it doesn't look like it's moving, assume it's coming straight at you. But if you can tell that it's moving across the sky from left to right or right to left, go in the opposite direction and get away from it at that point. And then it's not outrunning, it's repositioning. Or if it's really moving across the sky, you may already be in a safe enough place, and just back away even farther from it would be fine.
That's good. That's one of those tricky questions, because so often people did preach that you're not supposed to stay in your car. And it is safer to outrun them, I'm sure, or not outrun them, but to move away from them, just to get out of the way.
Getting out of the path. Yeah. Repositioning. Yeah. And I think if we just start reframing our wording on it, we can kind of break that cycle of never outrun a tornado. Okay, that sounds great. And that's true. You're not going to want to outrun a tornado. You don't want to be in the path of a tornado. So getting out of the path of the tornado and repositioning to a safer spot might be the better way to look at it. And, the one thing is, we've learned a lot over the years. People used to think getting under an overpass might be safe. And now we've learned it's the absolute worst possible thing you could do. I mean, getting in a ditch is a terrible idea, to be quite honest. You're going to have water and things flying near you, but it's slightly better than being in the open ground, and it's way better than being under an overpass. Under an overpass and a tornado hits you, you have put yourself in absolutely the most dangerous position you could possibly put it in, because you squeeze wind into this narrowing channel and it really rushes through, and it becomes it's not a good picture, that's for sure. I've seen way too many times that ends very badly.
Yeah, that's good information to know also. And what about weather radios? Are those helpful?
Yeah, they are. One thing that's nice about them, and we're kind of in this weird mix of technology right now, and I think a lot of people are starting to think that maybe it's an outdated technology. But here's the thing that's really interesting about it. So when it comes to cell phone service, it is electrically dependent. And especially if you're in a rural area, you may have one tower that if that one tower loses power, or too many people try to get on there and maybe stream a live service at the same time, you may either lose the power to the tower, which would lose your internet, or it would kind of restrict what we call the bandwidth, but there's not enough flow of data being able to go through that tower, and it gets jumpy, it lags, it buffers, it does whatever it does, or it drops the signal off of that. And then you run into no information. So having a backup. The other thing is, a lot of people, and myself included, I don't like to get woke up in the middle of the night with every email and text message that comes into my phone and makes it buzz or ding. So I go into a do not disturb mode. If you forgot to turn off the do not disturb mode and we had a middle of the night storm, your phone isn't going to buzz. It might if you're signed up for certain wireless alerts, the emergency alerts, the WEA ones that they say, the government ones that'll buzz on your phone. I'll be honest, I was down in Florida just maybe a month ago, and there was a tornado warning in the county we were in, and those alerts came 21 minutes later. So they're not as fast as we'd like them to be. So there's a lot of delay issues with that. The one that still is immediate, and the one that still is typically very, very reliable, aside from television, which is also the weather radio, because it's going to jump on there and alert. It's constantly running, and it will power itself on with a very hard to sleep through sound to get you woke up. And so it's designed for that very purpose, to not let you inadvertently miss and really important information. I think of it as like one of many tools. Is it the only tool? No, because honestly, it's going to tell you what county it's in. If you live in a larger county, that doesn't tell you if that's even coming at you and where it is. And that's really where I tried to come in. My profession and the people who are in the media and all different markets, that's what we do. Like after the warning's issued, the idea is then turn the TV on. We should be there. That's our job. And then we'll be giving you much more specifics of where, when it's clear to come back out. But at least you didn't sleep through it, because as much as I'd like to, I can't reach in and turn your TV on in the middle of the night and like wake you up. It's going to take another device to do that. If you're and sometimes you can hear the thunder, and that'll be enough to wake you up. But we've seen some low amounts of lightning out of tornadic cells too that may not be enough to wake you up. It might not even seem like it's that bad of a storm from the sound of it until it's too late.
Yeah. That's great information. And again, Matt, thank you for joining us today. Always great information. And hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon.
Hopefully so. And I would say in advance, before we get to the season, apologies in advance for interrupting your favorite show. I don't do it because I want to. I only do it because it's the right thing to do. And but hopefully everybody can be forgiving on that one. We really truly don't seek out to ruin programming. That's not in our best interest.
Oh no, we appreciate everything you do. So thank you for keeping us safe.
It's very much appreciated. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.